Okay, we will get going. I just got the heads up that we are now live, so apologies for starting a few minutes late, but we will begin. And we'll start, Mr. Westerson, with a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Dodick.
He's upstairs. He should be down soon. Oh, there he is.
Councillor Dodick, are you present? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
And Councillor Crowson.
I'm here.
Excellent. And Councillor Carlson's joined us online, and Mayor Higgin is here as well. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I'll begin with the acknowledgement statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Moving on to the adoption of the agenda, I have a motion from Acting Mayor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the agenda of the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting of February 22nd, 2024 be adopted as presented. Acting Mayor.
And with the slight oversight of spelling my name wrong, other than that, I would ask to call the question.
All right, with that one amendment, we will call the question. All in favor? We have an agenda, though some of us always have an agenda. Moving on to the consent agenda. I have a motion from Councillor Dodick. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting held on November 11th, 2023 be approved, and the Chair and City Clerk designate be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that the status of initiatives for February 22nd, 2024 be received as information with the following amendment: that the date of return for the Civic Culture Plan be deferred from Q1 2024 to the April 25th, 2024 meeting of the Governance Standing Policy Committee, pushing it back about a month. Councillor Dodick.
I anticipate there will be about a half hour's worth of questions on this, so can we start with, I see Councillor Middleton Hope, or Acting Mayor Middleton Hope has a few questions. I call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Perfect. We have our consent agenda. Everything on the agenda are submissions. The first one is the Electric Utility, Alberta Utilities Commission AUC Compliance Report that we do annually. We do have administration here to answer any questions. You do, of course, have the report in your file. Are there any questions, or are we comfortable with the information to recommend on to council that we approve it as is, approve the submission? I guess your report was so well done, nobody has any questions. So I have a motion from Councillor Dodick. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommends City Council approve the submission of the City of Lethbridge Code of Conduct Regulation 2023 Annual Compliance Report as provided in Attachment 1 to the Alberta Utilities Commission AUC, which we do annually. Councillor Dodick.
There it is. Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Excellent. So that will be recommended on to council, and then if approved, they're sent on to the province. Moving to our second submission, we have Nikki-Yuko Japanese Garden Society request renaming of Visitor Center and Pavilion Tea House. This is a status update. Essentially what was in the submission was for information. This process is still ongoing. It's not under sponsorship. They are still working on their master plan. Everything will come back to us at a future date, essentially. Would that be what you'd basically summarize, Mr. Harper? All right. Any questions? Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
And just a quick question. Is the new name a secret?
I don't believe it is, because I believe it's already on the building.
Pretty much.
Mr. Harper, do you want to tell us what that is? I don't see Ms. Day here, so you're probably the best one to answer it.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Middleton Hope. It is not a secret. I believe when they came and originally asked for the renaming, they indicated what the names would be. I don't recall what they are off the top of my head. I think one is the Yanoshita Center, but I can't recall what the other one was specifically.
Kawakura?
Pardon me?
Kawakura, wasn't it?
Kamakura, I think
Yes.
it was, yeah. Yeah, were the two. Yeah. Okay.
All right. But it was in past reports. Yeah. Counselor Schmidt-Rempel.
And not so much a question as just a comment in that thank you to the Board of Nikki Yuko for their patience on this as we work through this procedure. Thank you very much.
All right. And I'm looking at the audience. I think I know what everybody's here to do, so I don't think there's anybody here on behalf of Nikki Yuko who would like to speak. Okay. Then we will move to the motion. I have a motion from Acting Mayor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee receive for information the status update on the Nikki Yuko Japanese Garden Society request, renaming a visitor center and pavilion tea house. Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? All right. Third submission, Lethbridge Reconciliation Advisory Committee update. So the advisory committee has gone and they have drafted new terms of reference. We have had administration bring us a bylaw related to this, a draft bylaw. Everything is there before. You can see the original RLAC terms of reference and the one that is recommended. Would anyone from the community wish to speak on this one? It's not, you don't have to, but if there's anything you want us to know, please come up.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to share that I'm excited about RLAC this year. We've got a elder who is now the co-chair, and I think that we're going to see some great work happen this year. So I just wanted to share that.
I believe you have been re-elected as co-chair again?
Yes, this will be my 3rd year as co-chair.
Oh, congratulations on
Thank
that as
you.
well. Oh, yes.
Yes, thank you.
You have to provide your name for the record.
Oh, sorry,
For some reason, we
Cindy.
don't know who you are.
Cindy Bester.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Bester, very much. We'll move now to questions. So I'm not sure if there's any questions on it. I don't see any questions, so thank you. So we have a couple of options that we can do. As my colleagues know, we are reviewing all BCCs. We can pass this, recommend that this go on to council with the first reading on March 2nd, or 12th, sorry, and then second and third reading if it goes forward on March 22nd, or 26th, sorry, my dates are wrong. We can refer this into the BCC review and have it done holistically. We can recommend both of those any way you want to go. The current motion, which is being moved by Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, is the first one I mentioned, that it go forward, that we, Governance Standing Policy Committee recommends City Council give first reading to bylaw 6440 on March 12, 2024, and to consider second and third reading of bylaw 6440 on March 26, 2024.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
No.
just a second. We have a question first, or a question or a debate, Councillor Middleton. Okay. Oh. I thought you were, because here's your motion. Okay, Acting Mayor?
Yep, and I'm not sure to whom this would be referenced, but is there urgency in terms of the approval?
Okay. Ms. Bester, is there any urgency, or Ms. Novak, is there urgency? Could we stay under the current terms of reference, is what I think I'm hearing, until the BCC review, if we did move it in that direction instead? Yes. Okay. So there would be no problem there? Only question?
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, I cut you off.
That's okay. It's a follow-up question to that. If we did do the first, second, and third readings, would this still be reviewed, and this to the city clerk, would this still be reviewed as part of the BCC process?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it will be reviewed. It is being reviewed right now, and we were asked to review the mandate, the composition, the reporting for all the BCCs that council established. So it would still be, unless we were directed by council not to.
Okay, so it would still fall into that process even with approving this. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dodick.
Actually, that was my question too. I was just, because Acting Mayor Middleton Hope had asked if there's any, delay would cause a problem, and the answer is no, it wouldn't. And then the question was, as Councilor Schmidt-Rempel says, basically is, why not approve it? Because it still is getting reviewed anyways. So and it may turn out to be, well, today may be the review as it turns out, essentially. So,
Right.
in other words, I'm supporting this resolution.
Supporting the resolution, and it's sort of implied that it's going to be going to the BCC review. Does not have to be stated full out. And that won't cause any concerns to the committee? That if, because we might pass this bylaw and then we might make recommended changes at the review. Okay, I see nods from the committee. Everybody in agreement to read the motion as is? The motion is up. Motion to go to first and second and third reading. Okay, so Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, I've already read the motion, if you want to.
Thank you very much. So it was recommended that the Lethbridge Reconciliation Advisory Committee update its terms of reference to reflect any changes being made by the committee during its strategic planning. That's what we have before us today, those revised terms of reference. Strategic planning with reconciliation is in its final stages and will be brought forward to the Governance Standing Policy Committee for approval at another time. So what we have for today are the new terms of reference that we want to recommend be given first reading and second and third reading to council, and I would ask for my colleagues' support in this.
I don't see anyone else in for debate. All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. And that's the end of the meeting. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I just had to throw that out there. Moving on to 6.4, recommendation Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force Terms of Reference Update and Appointment Submission. So first, is there anyone from the community that would wish to speak on this? Okay, do we have anybody already signed up? Okay, Dr. Belanger, you have already signed up, so we will begin with you. You have 5 minutes to make a presentation.
I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns about the City of Lethbridge administrative process. Recently, the Lethbridge Police Commission website listed Mr. Hunter Hagee and Mr. Matthew McHugh as new members who also serve as Downtown Lawlessness Task Force members. Their serving as members of the task force and the Police Commission contravenes Procedure Bylaw 6250, Section 48B, which states that public members, quote, may serve on only one board, commission, or committee at a time unless council determines that conditions warrant the appointment to more than one board, commission, or committee. So I'm asking the committee to reflect on their task force appointments. Two arguments will likely be raised to explain why the City Council is protected from having to consider barring Mr. Hagee and Mr. McHugh from serving as members of the sub-government committees, specifically the task force. One, Procedure Bylaw 6250 applies only to City Council appointed public members, not provincial government appointees. And two, Procedure Bylaw 6250 language is opaque. As subcommittees are mentioned in passing, uncertainty persists regarding the task force as a source of authority, lines of accountability, and operational criteria. The sub and subcommittee denotes a subdivision of a committee that is assigned a portion of the committee's jurisdiction and reports to that committee. Yet, in an odd twist under Section 21 of the Procedure Bylaw 6250, only the City Council can establish subcommittees. In this instance, parliamentary tradition specifies 1, that the task force is bound by Procedural Bylaw 6250. 2, the City Council is a task force's parent body. 3, current reporting lines must be adapted accordingly. To the second point, the Government of Alberta notes provincial appointees share the same roles, responsibilities, accountability, and mandate as explained by the Municipal Police Commission's governance documentation. For context, the Lethbridge Police Commission is a statutory body created under the Alberta Police Act and the City of Lethbridge Bylaw 5969 to oversee the Lethbridge Police Service. It is a creature of local government, as are its members, and thus bound by the city's bylaw authority. The Government of Alberta further notes that in a case of conflict between the Municipal Police Commission bylaws and the Alberta Police Act, the latter would supersede said bylaws. Upon review, there are no pertinent conflicts. Reflecting on this issue, the policy materials I reviewed confirm, 1, residents do not cease being public members by being a provincial government appointee, and 2, hence, all police commission members remain bound by local government bylaws and decision-making authority. By all accounts, Procedure Bylaw 62 remains prerogative, and in turn, Section 48B conflict is confirmed. When read alongside Section 40 and Section 49, this issue must be referred to the City Council for future consideration. An additional related conflict of interest must be addressed, as is evident when referencing two sections of the Lethbridge Police Commission Policy and Procedural Manual. 1, Section 3.5 states, a member of the commission has a conflict of interest where there is a perception which a reasonably well-informed person could properly have, that a member's ability to exercise official power or perform an official duty must have been affected by the member's private interests. 2, Section 3.6 states, members of the commission representing clients or aligned with other interests must ensure any conflict of interest as defined above is fully disclosed. I am reasonably well informed and would suggest that a police commission member who simultaneously sits as a task force member must be deemed aligned with other interests. The task force seeks to identify solutions and assist in implementing strategies identified to create sustainable impact. This means task force members will fashion their preferred intervention strategies, after which the two members will promote an agenda of their own making to a police commission of which they are also members. 2 of the 9 police commission members will form a fixed and influential voting bloc. It is incumbent upon Mr. Hagee and Mr. McHugh, if they haven't already done so, to declare this potential conflict of interest to the Lethbridge Police Commission so that it may be managed properly. What I'm asking this committee to do is to remain faithful to the wording, spirit, and intent of Procedure Bylaw 6250 and accordingly refer the issue of Mr. Hunter Hagee's and Mr. Matthew McHugh's ongoing downtown lawlessness task force membership to the City Council for further debate and consideration. That is leadership. Until then, the ongoing perception of a conflict of interest and the seeming willful disregard of Procedure 6250 erodes public faith in our City Council's ability to remain transparent and accountable to the people of Lethbridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Belanger. I know we had other hands up. I believe, Mr. Graham, you had your hand up as well?
To speak today. My name is Stephen Graham, and I have some thoughts about this item 6.4 on today's agenda. It should be the recommendation of this committee not to proceed with amendments to the terms of reference, but rather to acknowledge that the task force was not duly constituted and that council, if it desires to pursue this course of action, should undertake appropriate consultation with administration, and especially the solicitor, to create a task force in an appropriate manner. Further, that any recommendation arising from this meeting pertaining to this lawlessness task force not be part of a council consent agenda, but be fully disclosed and debated in public in a council meeting. Now, there continues to be high incidences of lawlessness in our city. Lawlessness is defined as a state of disorder due to the disregard of the law, and these behaviors include uncontrolled conduct that has sustained pervasive impact on communities. At the October meeting of Council where this statement originated, Council asserted that time was of the essence in determining the scope and terms of reference of this task force and set a 2-month return date for those details. At the December 12th Council meeting, when the proposed terms of reference were returned, Council passed a resolution to create a task force with the presented terms. The approved terms of reference did not include reporting as required in Section 25 of the Procedure Bylaw, but this reporting could reasonably be inferred as reporting to the Social and Safety Standing Policy Committee, as it would be a subcommittee. From the minutes of the council meeting, it seems unclear what authority this committee had, under which authority this committee had been struck. The Municipal Government Act, Section 180, demands that a council must do, by bylaw, things that are required to be done by bylaw. It may do, by resolution, other things that are permitted by resolution or otherwise not constrained to be enacted by bylaw. If this were constituted as a subcommittee, a bylaw would be required as per Section 21 of your procedure bylaw. Council members need not be appointed since the standing committee to which the subcommittee is attached would report to council. It would have required 3 readings to do this, which could have been accomplished in a single sitting. And if the assertion persists that this is a subcommittee, then council has not acted in accordance with Section 21 of the procedure bylaw. If this were urgent and created under Section 22 of the procedure bylaw, as suggested by information received from the city, it would have been introduced as an ad hoc committee, not a subcommittee, with a clearly defined purpose and a clearly finite lifespan. The fact the council and the delegated parties had nearly 2 months lead time establishing the terms for this task force suggests it may not actually be truly urgent as required by Section 22. Bylaw 6125, the Council Code of Conduct, Bylaw Section 7.1, requires council to uphold the bylaws and policies of the city under Section 27.3, respect the city's bylaws, policies, and procedures. And as leaders of the community, members of council are to be held to a higher standard of behavior and conduct. That's Section 4.1. All council members have signed a declaration regarding this code. Members have committed to performing their functions and duties in a conscientious and diligent manner. It is disappointing to me that it falls to citizens to make sure that council follows its own bylaws. Yet, here we are. I assert that this task force has not been constituted appropriately under the legislation, and further that council has violated the Code of Conduct bylaw in the task force invocation and implementation. There is no amendment to the terms of reference that will change that. Let me close by reiterating, it should be the recommendation of this committee not to proceed with amendments to the terms of reference, but rather acknowledge that the task force was not duly constituted and that council, if it desires to pursue this course of action, should undertake appropriate consultation with administration to create this task force in an appropriate manner. Further, any recommendations arising from this meeting pertaining to the lawlessness task force not be part of the council consent agenda, but be fully disclosed and debated in public in a council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Anyone else from the public that I haven't brought up yet? All right. Thank you all very much for your presentations. We'll move now to questions from committee. Councillor Dodick, you are first in queue.
Thank you. Two separate issues seem to have been brought up as well. One, which is a sub of one of it. So I'm going to deal with the membership issue first that Mr. Belanger had made reference to. And I guess
Questions or responses to their...
no, there's a question to the city solicitor. Yes. The various sections of the procedure bylaw that Mr. Belanger brought up, it seems to be correct in the sense that 48B, public membership, they can only serve on one board, commission, or committee at a time, unless council determines that conditions warrant the appointment to more than one board, commission, or committee. Did we do that as council?
That's my knowledge.
Okay, but I tend to agree that Mr. Belanger has a point on that issue. Do you see it the same way? I mean, it can be fixed, but there's a mechanism for fixing it, but it just, as we sit right now, that seems to be the case, that you can only sit on one board unless you comply with 48B, for example.
When you consider only 48B, I would come to the same conclusion, but when you read it in conjunction with the defined term of public member, which 48 encompasses, public member are only members from Lethbridge that are appointed by council. So there would have to be a deeper consideration of whether the overriding Police Act issues would supersede that, and there'd be more thought would be required.
Got you. The procedure bylaw says that we can only do that, but how that is impacted by the provincial legislation that in fact appointed two members such that now they're sitting on, one being a provincial appointment to the police commission and one being to the task force that we're talking about. So that it seems to me that I'm hearing from you that actually needs more thought.
It would need more thought. The other argument would be, the argument is that the individuals named do not meet the definition of public members of the police commission, and therefore they are not sitting as public members on more than one BCC.
Okay.
On the other hand, as you've noted, if council wants to avoid, if council was of the mind to approve those notwithstanding anything anyway, that would make the issue moot.
Yes. Okay, the second is issue, I'm not going to do the conflict of issue, that's sort of a subset of the membership, but going to what Mr. Graham was saying regarding Section 21 of the procedure bylaw, and it says again, subject to 22, whether there's an urgent need. It seems to me on my reading of the procedure bylaw that he has a point on that.
I would take the view that council needs to be reasonable in its interpretation of its own bylaw here, and they are the, at least at first instance and subject to judicial review, the body that would determine whether the urgency met that right.
Okay, this is more of a general question because, you know, I supported the this task force being constituted, but I also want to ensure that that it be properly constituted to avoid problems and issues that at least resonate in my mind based on the references to the sections of the procedure bylaw that have been made by the presenters. So as a city solicitor, what would be your recommendation, bearing in mind that the recommendation as it sits now may not be the best course of action to make sure that this task force, if we want it to exist in a lawful fashion, does so. So what say you, city solicitor?
I would say if council didn't feel this was an urgent need, that it would be better papered as a permanent subcommittee as opposed to an ad hoc committee, which is the form in which it exists currently.
Okay, and what would we have to do at this point to do that? What would be the correct process?
Governance SBC would request a bylaw to be drafted or amendments to an existing bylaw, and we'd come back to this committee for review of that.
Okay, so is it this committee or is it the Safety and Social SBC? See, it sort of gets mixed up a little bit because it talks about the reference in the procedure bylaw that it's the appropriate SPC that then refers it to council, and it's sort of mixed in with the governance as well. Oh, yes. Councillor Crowson likes this discussion.
I defer to the clerk's office, but my understanding is that any proposed terms of reference or any proposed governance issues, whether it be about a matter that would relate to another committee, would come to governance for that purpose.
Okay.
First, at least at first instance.
But nothing would stop a parallel presentation to both subcommittees or special purpose committees in the interest of time. Well, I mean, based on their differing schedules, of course.
I think you're mixing up who the subcommittee reports to
Yeah.
and who gets to create subcommittees.
Well, I'm generally mixed up, so that's not that. that's
My
not
reading
that-
of the bylaw is that any subcommittee BCC created has to go through governance. So in its creation, it has to come through here, if
Yeah.
I understand this correctly. In its reporting, it would go to social and safety if governance creates it.
Okay. As I said earlier, I would, like I said, so the full disclosure, I supported it. As I think, well, obviously the majority of council did support this, but I want to ensure that it's lawful if, you know, or if in fact we've reached a place where we can't make it lawful, that we deal with that as well, you know. So we're relying on you to guide us, Mr. City Solicitor. Sorry.
Do you want some time to think about this? Do you want a bit of a recess?
I think if we're going to talk about this fact-specific situation and different legal ways forward, my recommendation would be that we continue that discussion in camera with the justification under FOIP being solicitor-client privilege.
Okay, well, let me. I don't want a quick decision. It seems to me that these issues are quite complex because there's a number of sections of the procedure bylaw involved, and then how the Police Act comes into play, and the fact that we're the child, as the province is wont to say, of them. So we're subject to their, which brings us back to, okay, they've appointed the public members, so maybe we ignore that and we just go with the procedure bylaw as if they didn't exist. But then on the other hand, the Constitution or the creation of the task force has been called into question as well. And then, of course, the side issue, or maybe just as an equally important issue, is whether there's any actual conflict or perception conflict. Do you think you can do that in this short period of time in terms of a quick in-camera meeting, or would your suggestion be that maybe we defer this to a different time for discussion? You know, I don't want to put you on the spot because it is a little bit more complex than I initially thought it was as well.
There are complexities here, and if this committee was willing to, I would appreciate the benefit of that in-camera discussion, and then might appreciate a longer period of time to come back with a more fulsome opinion.
Okay.
Would it, like I know this is a subcommittee, but could this be deferred to in-camera meeting of council? And then refer it back to the appropriate SPC, depending on what we're told?
I see Ms. Hilford is pondering that. Procedurally, it's before us right now. And I know there's other questions that probably should get asked before we even consider going into in-camera, because there's a lot more concerns. But what do you think, Ms. Hilford? Can this be referred? And if it is referred, does the task force have to go on hiatus until we figure these things out? Where do we go from here? Would be some guidance.
If there is a motion of the committee and it's adopted to refer or forward to council, that can definitely go ahead. I don't know about Tuesdays, whether that would give the solicitor enough time, but yeah, it could be done for sure.
And hearing the concerns here, would there have to be a recommendation until these things were figured out that this task force goes on hiatus? I'm asking the city solicitor and the city clerk.
Well, I'm going to have to defer to the city solicitor whether, again, if you put it on hiatus, or if you don't put it on hiatus, is it lawfully running? So, sorry, I do have to refer to you.
It has no members.
I would answer it this way. If council is of the mind to be 100% certain of the procedural regularity of the proceedings, then I would say it should go on hiatus. Practically speaking, from a risk management perspective, the committee has no authority to do anything other than give advice to another SPC. And so they don't have any decision-making power, they can't spend money or anything that would really attract liability. And so there's, in my view, very little risk to allowing it to continue with that understanding.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lowen. Are you finished asking questions right now, Councillor Jodek, or do you have more?
Use my favorite Latin phrase, nunc pro tunc, then for now.
All right. Ms. Hilford, do you have something you wish to add at this point?
The only thing I'd add, and thank you for letting me speak, is the procedure bylaw was written and adopted long before provincial appointments came along. So there may not be alignment there. So that's just the way it is, actually.
Perfect. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
Thank you very much. And I think, Mr. City Solicitor, I would think that we also need to consider the downtown BIA bylaw, 6338, where there are members that are on both the BRZ as well as on the Lawlessness Task Force. So we have at least 4 members that are currently sitting on both, and that would fall under and be in violation as well of our bylaw 6250. So I would think that that particular downtown BRZ bylaw needs to be included in that review. And then a question that I had to the city clerk, have we approved the members of the downtown BRZ to this point yet from last year? Because I could not find that in any of our past meeting minutes.
Thank you. You had sent me that question yesterday. We have not had time to research that or the
Okay.
bylaws or anything. So I don't have an answer. I don't know if Mr. Westernen has time to review that.
Sorry, first day back in the office. I haven't had
Okay.
a chat. I got that this morning, and
Okay, yeah, no, and that's something I think we need to investigate too, because I don't recall seeing that, and in the research I did, I could not find that we'd actually ratified those members at this point too. And I think another point that I would just make is that if we did suspend this, there are other organizations and other groups that are doing some of the work as well, overlap kind of work. We do see the commission, and then we also do see the shelter strategy doing some of this work. So there is work still going on in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Outside of appointments, I have a few questions as well. And I think, Mr. Lowen, you implied some of this, but I want to be clear. This is a subcommittee. Can a subcommittee give any direction to city staff? I'm not sure if that is yourself or city clerk. Can they give any direction to city staff from a subcommittee?
The answer is no. They can make recommendations to the SPC. That's their authority.
So they can't, ask staff to go and do research or anything like that? That would be direction.
Council has not delegated that authority.
Okay. Do they have any budget out of this subcommittee?
That I believe the answer is no, but I would prefer to defer to a finance professional for that.
And so their only role is to make recommendations to the Standing Policy Committee above them, a subcommittee?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions that any members of SPC have? Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
And I guess there are some questions in with regards to the terms of reference, if we are looking at those as well.
Yeah, everything is on.
Okay, everything's on the table. Okay, as part of, and if we look at this and just keeping it as an ad hoc committee and this to the
Well, it's
mover.
a subcommittee right now, it's not an
Or,
ad hoc.
right, as a subcommittee, we looked at this and we originally approved the terms of reference with a sunset clause of the end of 2024. And in reviewing the terms of reference, I noticed that that had been removed. So to the mover or to the city clerk's office, the work that was done on the draft terms of reference, the sunset clause has been removed from that. So I'm just curious as to where that's gone and why we've removed that, because that really should be in there.
To whom are you asking that question?
Whoever can answer that. I'm not sure who worked on the terms of reference for this. I think Mr. Sarsfield is raising his hand.
So the sunset clause is still there. So all we were doing was we were reviewing the terms of reference. And if you go back to the original motion of City Council, it says we adopt the terms of reference and with the sunset clause of to be reviewed within 6 months. We still are applying that. These are just the terms of reference.
Okay. Because there was, in the original one, there was a sunset clause at the end of the year 2024.
Yeah, so we can still do that if you wish to make that part of your resolution. That was the
Okay.
intent.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of committee? All right. Do we feel comfortable going forward with drafting a motion, or do we wish to have a bit of time to think about what that motion may be?
I think based on what the city solicitor had said, is that the motion is that this matter be deferred until such time as we've received comprehensive information from the city solicitor's department regarding any potential issues that may arise with respect to the conflicts that we see with respect to the Police Act, the procedure bylaw, and other issues that sort of flow from that.
Okay. And recommending that the committee still continue meeting is part of that?
Yes.
Okay. Recognizing that there's no direction given to staff, they have no budget, and they've got to work within that mandate?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are you willing to make that as your motion?
So moved.
And
I'm not going to.
well, I just need to know if it's been captured. Mr. Westerson? Okay. Mr. Westerson needs, oh, sorry, Councillor Carlson, I haven't been ignoring you, but I've been ignoring you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just while that's being drafted, Ms. Hilford raised a point that I think may behoove governance to look into. Our policies, bylaws, procedures pertaining to BCCs and structured appointments were drafted before we ever had provincial appointees. I think it was Dr. Belanger who raised the thought that to any reasonable person, an appointee is still a public appointee. I'm just wondering if Ms. Hilford thinks we should also address those concepts while we're sort of searching all this. As with Councillor Dodick, I know that there's very little risk according to the city solicitor, but I think reputational risk, if we're doing things offside of our own rules and procedures, is just as damaging as any financial risk or legal risk.
Ms. Hilford, I think there was a question in there about...
Sorry, yes. Should we look at what is envisioned by when we say public appointees?
And under that, can I just add, there is section 36. In appointing public members to BCCs, council acknowledges that an ethos of good governance is advanced when the city's diversity is meaningfully reflected in the composition of its BCCs and shall strive to have diverse and reflective BCC membership. I know that's about one type of diversity, but it is about, making sure that there's not just the same people on everything.
So I did hear Councillor Dodick say that maybe the solicitor should include the procedure bylaw when he's looking at coming back with information. So I'm assuming that would be included. But as well with our review of BCCs, this lawlessness committee would also be included if you wanted us to review. And then our recommendation would probably be to amend the procedure bylaw if it's not already done to align and make sure that members are appropriately defined.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe it does. Also, just another question. Was there any thought when reviewing the TOR to changing the name of this task force? I don't know if it's just me, but every time we talk about lawlessness, it sounds like we're having shootouts in every corner of our city. I'd rather have a more positive spin on the outcomes we're trying to achieve. So was there any consideration given to a name that's somewhat more reflective of what the goals we're trying to achieve are?
Acting Mayor Middleton Hope is choosing to answer that, so please go ahead, Acting Mayor.
I think, Councillor Carlson, you'll see with the definition that it is more inclusive than exclusive, and I certainly encourage you to come to any meeting of the subcommittee of the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee, which would be the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force. So I encourage you to come and participate.
And thank you. Would that include any of the in-camera sessions? I've had members of the public be quite offended when they show up at 7:30 and are immediately kicked out so that the committee can do all of their meetings in camera.
Yeah,
would I be allowed in, and is there I would hate to, you know me, I would hate to get up at 6:30 in the morning to be then told go home.
Yes, well, as you're probably aware, the reason for going into in camera is an opportunity for us to roll up our sleeves and get to work on the tasks that are before us. There is a lot of work to be done. There are a lot of discussions that need to be had. The horseshoe of this council chamber does not lend itself well to an opportunity to have that kind of dialogue. And I can assure you, anybody that has been to any of the meetings, and you are welcome to come, that has been to any of the meetings has reflected on the importance of having the opportunity to sit in a less formal environment where we can have a free flow of discussion.
Thank you.
But to answer your question, Councillor Carlson, under the procedure bylaw, any member of council may attend any SPC, as you're joining right now as a guest, and a subcommittee would have, I'm presuming, the same rule. So you may attend both the open and the in-camera. Of course, the rules for the public would be not to be included in the closed session. So,
Right.
But yourself, yes, of course, you would be welcome to both the closed and the open session.
I think I said that.
I think I said it more clearly.
Jeff is always welcome.
Thank you for that. Just a point of clarity, Acting Mayor. I would want to be have some certainty that our BCCs or subcommittees or are not going in camera just because they want to feel more comfortable. I trust there are sections that are applying to that. I know that's council has been accused of that many times in the past, that we just want to have difficult conversations in camera.
Yeah.
But there are certain rules that we have to follow. I just want to ensure that's happening.
I can assure you Mr. Sarsfield holds our feet to the fire on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Carlson. Are there any other questions before we get back to the motion that's on the floor? Mr. Westerson is still drafting it? Oh, Ms. Schmidt-Rempel, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. And this to the city clerk's office. If this were to go through the bylaw procedure of creating a regular BCC, let's call it, as we go through the interview process and everything for that, the city clerk's office reviews it in conjunction with other BCCs to ensure that there is no duplication of participation of individuals of the public, correct? And would advise councils. So if it went through the regular process, we would have been advised.
I will defer this to Mr. Westerson. That's his areas. We should, but I will let Mr. Westerson respond to that.
I just see Acting Mayor. I have Mr. Oh, yes, of course. All right, Councillor. Or Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
So this process or this constitution was recommended by the city clerk's office, and we were following through on as a subcommittee of the Social and Standing Policy Committee. I certainly don't see the direction that I'm getting the clear sense of is that we're moving towards creating a board committee or a commission out of this, and I don't see that as necessary nor the direction that we actually want to go in. This group needs an opportunity to be able to reflect on the problems that we're facing and provide for solutions. That's the focus of the group. So to create additional structure that is beyond what we've been talking about, and I'm not trying to throw the city clerk's office under the bus, but we've taken direction from them in regards to the constitution of this particular subcommittee.
And fair enough, but my question was, the city clerk's office does review BCCs for participation in making sure that we don't have residents participating in two BCCs, correct? So if we had put this through the bylaw process, as there was a question asked during the meeting when we formed this, it would have been reviewed through that process.
Okay, but this isn't a BCC.
No, but if we were to put it through that process, it would be reviewed.
So usually, yes,
Okay.
and that's for the normal BCCs.
Okay.
There's a difference here because there's provincial appointments and then there's BRZ appointments, and they're a little different, so they don't come through the normal process.
No, but
generally, yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Westerson, did you have anything to add?
Very similar to what Ms. Hilford was going to say. Generally, yes. Anytime that a recruitment phase is done as part of the BCC program, I'm just trying to pull up 2021 right now, council would have received an indication if there was more multiple members. But again, we're dealing with now extra levels here with regards to the provincial appointments and then the potential BRZ members as well.
Yeah, no, and thank you. Yeah, I was just clarifying that if it had gone through the regular process, we would have had some of this review done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Any other questions, or shall we get back to the motion on the floor, which I now have a draft of, and I imagine we can put up as well? Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee refer this matter to the City Solicitor to review the current terms of reference of the Downtown Lawlessness Reduction Task Force, the provincial legislation impact on bylaw 6250 procedure bylaw regarding provincial appointees to councils, boards, commissions, and committees, as well as the procedure bylaw and its provisions as they relate to the task force and its compositions and membership, and any other relevant issues, well, I love that term because that's just huge, and legislation that may be involved and that may arise therefrom, and report back at the March 28, 2024 meeting of the Governance Standing Policy Committee. So that is the recommendation. First question, Mr. Lowen, is it doable if we stuck with this to March 28th? Is that doable within your mandate?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no matter of not doing it. Councillor Dodick, we'll move it back to you as the mover.
Sorry, what?
I moved this to you, sent this to you as the mover. I did ask the question of Mr. Lowen if the March 28th date works. I assume he was involved in drafting this, but I want to be sure. But we're back to the motion. We have it in front of us. And as the mover, you can open any discussion you wish on it.
If there are any questions, I'd be prepared to entertain them.
Okay, Acting Mayor Middleton Hope.
So we're clear, the task force continues until such time as we have definition around this.
You're not on.
The city solicitor indicated in the affirmative.
Good. Are you moving into debate?
Unless there are no questions.
What's that?
Unless there are no questions, then yes.
Good. Okay, so we're into debate.
Okay, so I'll open debate. I want to thank the presenters. Process sometimes can be very boring and difficult to understand, but the legalities that were pointed out resonated with me. I didn't have the bylaw in front of me until just today, but the presenters made it very clear as to what their concerns were. And bearing in mind that I was a supporter of this task force, I do have some interest in ensuring that that we follow the law and ensure that it is properly constituted and that it is in line with provincial legislation, our procedure bylaw. And if it isn't, then we will, I'm hoping, receive from the city solicitor recommendations as to how it can be done to ensure that everything is lawful. And if the conclusion is to the contrary, then how we can actually do the task force in a legal fashion, which may potentially involve reduction of certain or not having certain members on it if in fact the composition is something that you just can't work around. So the purpose of this is get the city solicitor to work on it to make sure that how to make this lawful, or at least I shouldn't say that, but but to give us advice as to what the appropriate course of action is, bearing in mind what has been provided to us by the presenters and the other issues that were brought up by Councillor Schmidt-Rempel as well. So I would ask for SPC support.
Thank you, Councillor Dodick. Acting Mayor Middleton Hope, did you have debate? Okay, you shut your button off on purpose? It wasn't an accident of the mic? All right. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
Thank you very much. And I echo the comments of Councillor Dodick. Thank you very much to the presenters today for bringing these observations forward. You're both correct in that we need to be more vigilant to our adherence to the bylaws and acts that we are governed by. So I certainly appreciate you coming forward and discussing these with us. The task force under this motion can still meet and make recommendations to the SPC that it reports to, and its role is to make those recommendations to that SPC above them. There is no spending approvals, anything like that. It's recommendations to the SPC, which then get recommended to council, and this gives us and our city solicitor an opportunity to work through some of the issues and other legislation that may govern this. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. I will not be supporting this. I haven't supported the task force from the beginning for various reasons. I do have a concern that I see a lot of staff in attendance at the task force, and we must be very careful to make sure that they're not being given any direction. They are only under the operational guidance of the city manager. They're not under an SPC or a subcommittee, so I want to make sure that we're careful on that. And I believe there are other ways to achieve. We have Police Commission could be talking about these conversations. It could be held in other places. Task force members could be attending Police Commission public meetings, having these conversations with them. So I will not be supporting this, as I have not supported the task force from the beginning. But I do appreciate a really good conversation into governance, and I look forward to seeing what the city solicitor brings back. I do thank the members of the public for raising these issues and concerns with us. And I see now Acting Mayor Middleton Hope is back in the queue for debate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will support this. My colleague has made a compelling argument and provided some important information that I think any time of circumspection at any time is worthwhile. Insofar as the work of the committee is concerned, or the subcommittee is concerned, this is an action-oriented committee. This is a group of individuals who are highly skilled, who are working on some incredibly complex problems in the city. I certainly look forward to any type of information, resources, or even support from any member of the public in regards to the work that we're doing. We're trying to get the city back under control. We're trying to get the downtown core cleaned up. And we're trying to deal with lawless behavior that's occurring. And so anything that can be brought forward in terms of providing support to that, I certainly am in support of it, and I appreciate Councillor Dodick making the amendments to this motion, and I would support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Acting Mayor. Again, before we go into the vote for this, Mr. Westerson just reminded me from his role in legislative services that we do have a bit of a conundrum. We have said that the task force can continue to work, but we have ratified no members. So they have a task force that, except for our two councillors, have had no members put on it because there is no motion. So, City Solicitor, how do we figure that one out?
I don't have the knowledge to tell you whether 2 members constitutes quorum or not, but if they don't have enough members to have a meeting, I don't know, pursuant to their own terms of reference. But I know Mr. Sarsfield is more familiar with those actual documents than I will, and perhaps he has an answer. So otherwise, I'd need a brief recess.
Yeah, have we created a conundrum, Mr. Sarsfield? Can those people that they have on there come and just have conversations, but only the 2 voting members be the members of council? If they continue on, what is the solution for this in the interim?
So the terms of reference that were passed by council in December listed members, but did not list specific names for members.
Okay.
At our first meeting in January, the attempt was to name people, so that's the recommendation you have in front of you. So according to the terms of reference that council adopted, they just named categories of members. They did not list the actual members besides the 2 councillor members. So that's how we've been operating. and we were trying to get it corrected.
Okay, so they can continue as long as there's members from those organizations, may or may not be the members that are on the list we have.
You have, we're just filling those vacancies that you, of the categories you named.
But we're not passing that in a motion.
I
So they're
understand that.
continuing under the old terms of reference.
Correct. Those
Okay.
are the ones we're operating on until we get new direction from council.
Perfect. Does that make everything okay, Mr. Westerson? Okay, perfect. We go back to you, Councillor Dodick. You just have to call the question.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? It goes forward, recommended to council for the deferral. That's 3-1. There's only 4 of us. Okay, all right. We still have one motion. Yes, we do. It's the one coming out of the earlier in camera. 7.1, be it resolved that the Government Standing Policy Committee refer the confidential discussion held in closed session to administration to report back to a future Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting. And further, be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee direct that the closed meeting discussions with respect to the community well-being and safety strategy, CWSS, remain confidential pursuant to sections 21, harmful to intergovernmental relations, and 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. I will move that. All in favor? All right, we're adjourned. That one passed unanimously. And yes, I broke the procedure bylaw, don't mention it.